Hey everyone, Beck Whiting here. I'm at the new National Office for Tempin in Australia here in Melbourne to say g'day. We received over 100 inquiries and questions in regards to the inaugural online members forum, and today I'm going to sit down with TBA senior management to go through those questions. Come with me as I say g'day to CEO Rohan and Chairperson Jerome. Welcome to the inaugural G'day TBA online forum. My name is Beck Whiting and I'm joined here today by Tempin Australia's CEO Rohan O'Neill and Chairperson Jerome Joseph. We're going to go through the questions that the members submitted through the online portal. Over to you, Rohan.
Thanks, Beck. And look, firstly, a big thank you to you for giving up your time to ask us these hard-hitting questions that we received from the various members. We've got over 100 questions submitted. We aren't going to be able to answer all of them today, but we have grouped them in themes, and we're fortunate to have Jerome, our chair, here to also answer a number of the questions. A lot of the rules questions and technical sort of questions we're not going to cover on this particular part of the Q&A, but we will be getting back in touch with you all regarding those questions. So thank you enormously for your interest and engaging with us through this particular new initiative of ours.
Awesome, thanks Rohan. So first off, for those who don't know what the G'day TBA forum is, Jerome, do you mind running that through with us?
Yes, thanks Beck, and again Beck, thank you for your time. We just felt as an organisation, the board and the executive, we needed to engage with stakeholders, and to do that we felt that our member stakeholder engagement was pretty much non-existent, and it was important that members get questions to the organisation that they may not have had the right information or were not clear on. So we've done a couple of things around this. So we have an engagement process around state presidents and associations. So after a TBA board meeting, Rohan and I meet with state presidents for a little quick meeting on a rundown of the board. And then we're also engaging with proprietors every quarter as another way to engage and talk about what's going on within the organisation. And then the third aspect for us was members, and ensuring that we can engage with members at a very different level than ever before. So G'day TBA was formed.
So now we know why we're doing this and what the forum is. I'm going to throw over to Rohan and Jerome. Can you just introduce yourselves, just for the members that don't know who you are?
Sure, Beck. Rohan O'Neill, CEO of Tempin Australia. I've been in the chair since May last year. I did come on board to TBA a little bit prior to that. Obviously, my start in Tempin Australia has been during the COVID period, but prior to that I've spent 15 to 20 years almost in sport, and particularly in cricket.
Thanks, Rohan. Yes, I joined the TBA organisation as a board member around about 3 years ago now, maybe 2.5 years ago. I had the opportunity to become a committee member of the Finance and Risk Committee, and then after an AGM maybe 1.5 years ago was elected as chairperson. I love the responsibility. I love working with the organisation and the executive and the stakeholders. And my background predominantly is quite corporate. I've spent a considerable amount of time overseas running and managing Fortune 500 businesses, and I sit on a couple of boards here in Australia.
Perfect, thanks guys. So now everyone knows exactly what Rohan and Jerome do. Let's get into the hard-hitting questions that everyone submitted. So first off, it's in regards to the Olympics. So obviously the Olympics have been held in Brisbane in 2023 and hopefully the Commonwealth Games in 2026 in Melbourne. Will Tempin ever become an Olympic sport?
Yeah, I might take that at the start and then throw over to the chair. Look, our focus and our goal is, in essence, we want to produce a gold medalist at 2032 in Brisbane. That's not completely in our control because the sport's not currently an Olympic sport, but it's driving what we do, and that means not just about producing best athletes, but it's also looking about producing participation at the grassroots level to be able to then work their way through to the Olympics. Importantly though, we've got to have good governance, we've got to have an industry working together, and we're really going to be making sure that we tick as many of the boxes that the International Olympic Committee want. So that is environmental sustainability, commercial return, good male-female participation, which we've got. So we've got a good platform to build on, and that's what's driving us.
Yeah, and the International Olympic Committee also need the sport of choice to have a strong Oceanic Bowling Federation, Oceania Bowling Federation, and for that reason, you may have noticed recently through an announcement that I joined the board of the Oceania Bowling Federation, and predominantly that was done to showcase the Australian capabilities and the fact that we've already got world champions within the sport, and to showcase again credibility around the sport, we needed to showcase a strong Oceania Federation.
Yeah, fantastic. So as we're aware, obviously we have a lack of TV coverage in Australia for Tempin bowling. So a member from Zone Bowling Rockingham has sent through a question asking how come we cannot get more television recognition of Jason Belmonte's achievements?
It's a good question, and I mean Jason and yourself, Beck, are like world-class athletes. Jason's an absolute legend of the sport and a great ambassador for the sport. I think there's a couple of components to this. Number one, the way that broadcast and television works now for sport and entertainment, it's really cluttered, but it's about entertainment as well as the sport. And I think for Tempin bowling, it's about packaging up the best possible product that appeals to the widest possible audience. And that means that maybe how we used to showcase the sport on TV, when it used to be on at lunchtime of the cricket, for example, it needs to evolve and look slightly different. But yes, we need to try and keep pushing towards getting more coverage, particularly the likes of Jason and yourself and our other top Australian athletes.
Yep. So this one, it might be a bit of an overlap, but Mackay Leisure Centre has sent through a question. Is there any plans to put bowling on Australian TV to help promote our sport?
Another great question, and look, we're pretty excited. There will be shortly some really positive news, we think, around our event product and portfolio of what we've got for the top athletes in Australia. Unfortunately, for this particular Q&A, we can't go into too much detail because we're sort of working through the nitty-gritty and details. But from a vision and what we're aiming for is to definitely have the top level bowlers bowling, whether it be through streaming services or ideally on linear broadcast level, to be able to showcase the skill to a wider audience. So watch this space. Maybe the next Q&A we might be able to cover it in a bit more detail.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing bowling on TV. It'd be fantastic. So we're going to throw it over to Nationals now, so the ANC that's down in Tasmania. So Toowoomba Sunset Super Bowl have sent through a question. Are we investing in the junior pathway that lead up to Brisbane 2032? As it is likely that today's 15 to 21-year-olds could potentially be in our Olympic team. So I'll throw that over to Rohan to answer that one.
Yep, look, a really insightful point and question. I guess I sort of take that as a two-part comment and question. Definitely the youth, the junior and youth group are absolutely critical for the future of the sport. However, that doesn't that doesn't mean we're not invested in our Open and our TBA 50s, etc., because they are really important to the future of the sport. The pathway piece is really challenging, and all sports are finding this at the moment. We're seeing through COVID and the trends that I'm seeing across the sports sector, people are choosing fewer sports earlier, and then they're not doing 3, 4, 5 sports, they're choosing 1 or 2. So we've got to be ready for that. And as the question sort of alludes to, we need a structure and a system in place to capture that. I don't think we've quite got it right yet. And so what we need to do is probably work together across the system with the state and territories and our local centres and associations, and provide the support for those athletes and get a clear pathway forward, whether it be to their state, to a particular centre, or a franchise in the ANC, or to Australia.
Yep.
I think the pathway journey in all sports is tough, because to Rowan's point, there's so much selection at a junior level that, the years of 20 years ago where maybe a school was offering cricket and football as a sport at a high school, at my own high school all those years ago, now there's a gamut of sports, and selection and choice is so high. So to showcase our sport at that junior level, we've got to do some things a little bit differently to do that.
So we got a lot of questions in regards to the restricted and classic divisions of the national championships. Obviously, a couple of years ago they were taken out of ANC. So we've essentially put all the questions together. So why is TBA dispense with the national competition for restricted bowlers who represent a significant majority of our TBA membership? The decision appears to contradict the TBA's vision of a thriving Tempin bowling industry that engages and connects communities through play and skill. So Jerome, would you like to answer that one and then Rohan's finish it off?
Yeah, look, I think the national championships and its movement, the way TBA have done it, has been an issue with bowlers, right? But I think we've now made some changes to having strong bowling people oversee it. And having Morty Douglas as our national bowling manager, and him having an understanding of bowling far greater than Rohan and I, as an example, will deliver outcomes to some of those events that may not be in an ANC championship.
Yeah,
Rohan, I'll let you speak at it more.
Yeah, more operationally and things. And I think that's a fair point. I think to the questions that did come through around restricted, and I think Jerome as well, it sort of probably predates us, the restricted national championships as such. But number one, we still believe there needed to be something for our best athletes, and the ANC and that out-of-the-box innovation that we're getting through the partnership with Strike 3 is something that we're really keen to keep moving with. I think what some of the questions coming through around restricted are very fair, and we are now looking at going, right, well, how can we provide what the punter wants, or what the member wants, or what the participant wants? And there is a way to do that. We accredit 300 events a year, so we feel there's got to be something in that mix that can appeal to everyone. Now, in an exciting way, we, as part of what we're also talking around potentially getting into TV and streaming and this sort of things, we actually feel that events is a big opportunity, and revisiting restricted, for example, is something that we are really looking at closely, because during COVID, I think people have seen that they've missed that event connection. And I'm seeing, and I'm hearing this across the sports sector as well, that events are actually full. People want to go to events because they've missed it for 2 years. So again, watch this space, but I think there's definitely going to be a way forward for restricted bowlers to come together and something within our structure to be able to provide what they want.
Yep. You're right. I think most tournaments in Australia have been full this year, which is fantastic to see. So, so over to Rockway. So for those that don't know, we have a competition state versus state called Rockway that has changed for 2022. So the question is in regards to why has a privately run organisation been allowed to use the Rockway name for a tournament that looks nothing like the history of the tournament?
Yeah, look, I again, not having been around for the whole history of the tournament, but I'm fairly certain that Rockway has looked and had different teams and groups involved in the past. Evolution or revolution is part of what we need to do as sport. The approach we've taken is what can we do with our vision in mind of becoming a sport that produces a gold medalist at 2032, and that is to try and redefine and see if we can capture more of the better bowlers bowling. The data that we had was that a lot of the top average bowlers from an average point of view were not necessarily going to Rockway or to even Australian Masters for that matter. We're trying something to be able to try and rectify that and get a wider net so that the better athletes can really come and do. Now, the proof will be in the pudding, and we understand that it is different from what it was in the past. However, for those that, certainly I think last year, given COVID, the impact, we were one of the few sports that ran a national championships last year. Most sports cancelled. We pushed forward, and I think without the support of Strike 3, as a really good example, we probably wouldn't have done that. So it was really, it's a benefit, and the proof will be in the pudding, I think.
No So we'll give you guys a break from ANC. So a few questions there, long ones. So we'll move across the league. So obviously we're finding across most centres that the numbers are kind of dying away with COVID and not many people have come back. So we've got a few questions around that. So Zone Bowling Forest Hill, we had a member from that centre that sent through the question. They've bowled in Melbourne for over 35 years, been through the ups and downs of Tempin bowling. The numbers of league bowls obviously have decreased at their centre mainly, and they want to know what TBA is doing to encourage people to get back into bowling and reverse that decline.
Quite an interesting question, and we are definitely seeing a trend in traditional membership, not just in Tempin bowling, but in all sports. So, and that's happened over 20 years. So, Sport Australia and the research that's done on traditional membership has shown decline. The sports that have innovated and adapted are now seeing benefits. I'll give an example. Golf have innovated and adapted their membership models to enable more social membership to partake in it. In regards to league, we need, and TBA in our role needs to be better at promoting the benefits of what connecting to a league is. And that is really around that social cohesion and connectionness that you get through being involved in league. However, I think on the flip side, we also need to be more flexible to the needs of what people want, and trying to get people into a certain way forward may not be the answer, and probably isn't the answer, and we've got to try and offer more options for those people to attract. It's not an easy answer, and I don't have the magic wand, but we are certainly pretty critically looking at how we can do it.
Yeah, that explanation is perfect. We know that league bowling and membership in general in sports is going backwards to some extent, and it's to do with the sport actually not understanding that having a league on a Wednesday night at 7 o'clock and not having any other solution around dates and times doesn't suit everyone. So therefore, some of these members are working shift work, they're not available, so therefore they don't have an option to bowl, and therefore they don't want to be a member, right? And we understand that. So Rohan and I and the board have spoken at length around what can we do to be a bit more innovative around the offering. So that's the important part, that it's not something we haven't discussed. We've actually discussed it at length, but it's about crossing the T's and dotting the I's to get it right.
Yep.
But the positive, I must say, is that our membership to date, as a percentage and as a number, is up nearly 13 or 14% from the same time last year. So it's good that our membership numbers are up, because in the last couple of years it has been a declining number from year on year. So, and I think the wider strategic discussion is around how do we make it more attractive as a sport so people can actually take up league from that junior pathway to say, okay, well, I did a bowl patrol program, I love the sport, I'm now doing some junior bowling, and I want to now take on league later on in life. That's the passion we've got to show back and bring back, in my view.
And I think we're kind of going towards that. Like down in Victoria, we've got a hybrid Victorian bowling league that you can essentially bowl when you're ready to bowl, and it's against every centre in Victoria. So
yeah, and as a
down that track.
And as a bowler, Beck, you see what I mean about the fact that sometimes having a league on that time and that day doesn't always work for people.
100%. Yeah,
right?
Especially those shift workers. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully the other one in Victoria can be successful this year, and then the other states can look into it as well. Yeah, perfect. So Go Bowling Can, so up north in Australia, how is TBA promoting the sport and helping centres get more juniors into bowling?
Look, an absolutely critical question for us. So we have a great, well-researched entry-level program of Bowl Patrol. Our challenge has been making that really easy and accessible for centres to take on and really jump on and actually work with us and grow it. However, we know the product's really good. It's researched. It's exactly how you build skill development of a child. It's not how we learnt when we were younger in terms of getting heavy balls and bowling from the full. It's closer to the pins. It's really properly done. However, the conversion of that into then the next stage is a really critical question for us at the moment, and what are we offering at junior league level? I think the other part of this question, I think it was from Mackay, is that right? From Cairns.
Cairns, yeah.
Was that the broader promotion of what we can do is actually linked to getting bowling more accessible on streaming and broadcast, and promoting our heroes more. So that's also part of the solution, because role models play a really big part of this, about getting more kids active in the sport. It is competitive, to put Jerome's point earlier around the competitiveness in sports. There's 37 sports targeting kids in school. We're one of those. So we really need to have a good proposition to those families, often the mums and dads who are making decisions around their kids, to try and say, this is a great, safe, inclusive, fun sport to play.
Yep, fantastic. So a member from Baronia, actually, down in Victoria. How do you propose to make the game more accessible and affordable for the common bowler? Every year league rates go up, and it pushes more and more bowlers away from the sport.
I'll let you.
Yeah, and it's a tough question, and like cost of living is a topical item at the moment, not just in obviously our sport or the sport we're involved in. Key things for us: partnerships. So we have really tried to drive partnerships with businesses that want to engage with bowling centres and with bowlers, to see what we can do to, get premium prices and drop the costs of those key operational requirements for a bowling centre, for example. I think as well, we need to see what we can do to try and make it more accessible to more people. We know that at a number of leagues, they're not at full capacity. So they might be at 75% of capacity, so 16 of the 20 lanes are active. So if we can start to generate and fill those gaps, then the centre's happy, we're happy, and then and we can start to sort of look at ways to try and make it more affordable. It's a really tough question though, because the centres have got a lot of pressures from a business point of view as well, as all businesses do at the moment. So our main focus is on building partnerships to try and minimise the impact on ways with the industry.
Yeah,
we also know, Beck, that proprietors have a business to run. They're putting food on tables and families. So we need to get closer to understanding the proprietor frustrations, limitations, you name it, right? And maybe we've been seen as an organisation as not working closely with a proprietor network, when in fact what we're saying is we want to get closer to proprietors. We want to understand some of your frustrations. That's one of the reasons why Damien and his sort of corporate engagement gave some sort of offerings to centres to see whether there's some savings there. We didn't do that because we just wanted to showcase we've got some corporates. We did it because we wanted some centres to look at them and go, hey, there's a saving here. I received some sort of information from a centre operator recently that had sort of moved some of their product to some of our corporates, and there's some savings for them, and they're wrapped, But we as an organisation need to showcase that more, and very shortly we'll be able to showcase that at a very different level than ever before and get much greater buy-in.
Yeah, fantastic. So over to disability, obviously TBA have included the NCS Inclusion Squad for this year, which is fantastic to see. So zone bowling Forest Hill, a lot of questions from Victoria actually today. Is there anything being done around improving education and awareness of complex disabilities in bowling centres to help create greater understanding and acceptance of the complex behaviours of those living with a disability? Quite a long question.
And a really good question. And in Tempin bowling, so 10% of our overall member base identifies as having either people with a physical or intellectual disability. So we would be one of the highest percentage of sort of mainstream activities in sport that has that. So we're obviously a really good option for people to go and bowl. However, with that is a requirement around education and support and the services around there. Two-pronged sort of response to that. One is, what are we doing internally to sort of do it? Well, we're training up our people. So we've partnered with like Scope and in a different sense, not disability, but sort of welcoming Australia to sort of understand that people we having different perspectives, and how can we be more open and welcoming to people of all backgrounds, all types, all particular ways. Mm-hmm. The second part, I think, is going to be the longer term piece, is working again with industry to say, right, how can we support and provide the education, use technology to do that through online seminars, webinars, to increase the awareness and education of how to connect with people. And Bowlabilities is actually one of our programs that we have that does provide that, and it has trained up people to do it. To work with the disability providers to provide a well-run and specific program for those needs. But it's a really tough question, and I think will take a bit of time to embed.
Is there anything TBA can do to combat the struggle for bowlers to find money each week when disability bowlers' only income is the pension? Why is there not a discounted registration fee for disability bowlers?
We've taken the approach of working closely with state governments around voucher programs to try and provide the support that government are providing. So in the majority of our states and territories, there is a sport voucher program. So we're sitting in Victoria, so I'll use the Victorian one as an example, and hot off the press, because I was with the Victorian government today, huge numbers of people accessing that voucher program, and that's means tested. So that is specifically in Victoria for people where a barrier is cost. And I would encourage anyone to connect in with TBA to find out if cost is a barrier. We've got to find a way, and that can be through your state or territory government. New South Wales have the program, WA, South Australia, a lot of the state and territories do, and they've been quite successful. So number one, we don't want cost to be a barrier. I think the question around disability and membership for us is something that we can take on board and consider. Our fixed costs around every member are in essence the same, around insurance and the competition management system and awards, and everything is provided sort of equally. However, it's something that we can certainly take on notice.
And Beck, I must say that we've talked about this at length at board level, and Rohan and I at length, because what excited me about coming to this sport was really two programs. It was Bowl Patrol and Bowlability, because I have an affiliation around growing children's minds and help get sport to do that. But more importantly, I've had strong associations in that disability space with family members and friends, and having a sport that can engage and can get people together but still use muscle and really do things on a sports perspective. Bowling does that like no other, right? So have we as an organisation looked at all of the opportunities on how we can support a person with a disability to do the sport and be cost effective? Hand on my heart, no. We haven't, right? But what we are doing is looking at that intensely now to say it's not only the disability bowler, it's the NTS bowler, it's the junior bowler, it's the bowler in there later on in life. That is there ways we can support coaches, and on a financial perspective here. This is not, because if we can do that and use corporate support and government support to do that, I think we're doing our job, right?
Yep. This one's from Zone Bowl in Boronia in Victoria. So they've been talking about the financial model, obviously, between themselves. So what is TBA doing to make the organisation more self-sufficient and less reliant on government and membership income streams?
I might take that because I'm closer to it,
yep.
Probably because of my involvement with Sports Australia and some of the discussions. The previous CEO of Sports Australia made it sort of clear to me that as a sports organisation, if you're going to get funding, it's about participation percentages. And if your participation percentage starts decreasing and we're giving you X amount of dollars, there's going to be questions asked about why are we giving that sport that continued amount of dollars if the participation is going backwards. So it's a pretty hard sort of discussion to have with people, because you go, geez, you're getting X, you may get Y, and therefore we've only really got membership fees and we've got Sports Australia income grants. So we have spoken at length about other revenue streams. How do we drive other revenue streams to, and that's not just increasing membership fees. That's not asking people to spend more money on things. It's about aligning to corporates. It's around the work Damien has been doing around getting corporates to engage at centre level. It's about work that we're doing with companies that could align to Bowl Patrol, bowlability. So that's the key driver of what we're doing. Because the question is a really good question, right? Because I think everybody thinks out there in the marketplace that we're not a strong financial organisation. I can guarantee you, over the last 2.5 years, the robustness and the notion of finance is so strong on a board perspective. And now, thanks to Rohan and Sue, who's come to us from a strong finance sports background, I can tell you, we're really clear, we're really strong financially, and we'll use that money to go back to the sport. It's just not gonna, that's the key, because once you have a strong financial P&L, Sports Australia will see it, and they'll understand that they've been very strong around managing a strong business and a strong sporting organisation.
So the next question comes from Zone Bolantagranong in our nation capital. So it's in regards to Tempin results, which is our results system that we use and we're starting to use for tournament entries and things like that, which is it's a great system. It's developing, obviously. With also the fact that we can do scoring online entries through that system, TBA considering taking it further and doing online accreditation through the system as well, and also having the events calendar. So that's in regards to trying to avoid as many clashes as we can with tournaments and whatnot.
The answer, in essence, is yes. Technology is an absolutely critical strategic item on our agenda, and we've actually got a technology and digital transformation subcommittee of the board, where we get outside tech people in to help advise us on where we need to go. Our competition management system's in place and it continually sort of is evolving, so that's Tempin results as it stands now. Making it easier for volunteers, number one. Accreditation, making that as simple and easy as possible. Results, accessible, mobile friendly, ability to input streaming, these type of things is where we need to go. So that's definitely on the agenda. And making sure that there is a hub around which the athletes can connect in. And I call everyone an athlete or a participant in the sport. We have 300 events accredited every year. The nature of that is there will be a clash, there will be clashes, and I think the art of what we're looking at is how to categorise positions so that the local inter or intra-centre tournament can have its place, as can the Australian Open or the Australian Masters.
The technology committee for us was a driver of strategy at board level, because we discussed the fact that to make life easier for individuals, especially volunteers that give up their time, bowlers, other stakeholders, it was important that we drive technology innovation to make it easier, make it accessible, and I think the group now chaired by Hish Fernando, because he's a governance chair, but he also comes from a IT technology background at a very high level, and the people he's getting around it are really strong, chief technology officers from big organisations that can support us and say, hey, have you thought about this when it comes to your member registration? Have you thought about this around rules and getting rules information out to to members. It's that sort of discussion.
Yeah, and it's very positive feedback in the community about Tempin results, and I know the NQ Tour are using it for their entries at every tournament, and Tyson Jones and that, they can't speak highly enough of it, so it's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and Tyson's feedback actually was great because he talked about the hours saved.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's a key component to this. And look, I mean, people, technology and marketing are the key enablers for any sport, right? And technology piece that we're just talking about is absolutely critical, and it's about making it efficient for people, because we are, the way that people operate now is in a pretty time short environment, and there's not a whole heap of sports getting volunteer administrators coming down wanting to spend time and effort to coordinate things. So we've got to be really mindful of our volunteers and being able to support them with good systems. And
yeah, and like I run the Victorian bowling circuit here in Victoria with a group of bowlers, and we all work full time. We've all trying to take our bowling career somewhere, and it is time consuming. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully one day we can use it, and yeah. So another question from ACT. So this is in regards to recent years, the development opportunities, accredited coaches, those topics. So does TBA have any plans on how to further support and engage accredited coaches in a way that is sustainable and ongoing to maintain interest levels to coach and ensure we stay up to date with the modern game?
I've got a real issue around volunteers and coaches putting hands in their own pockets to fund certain requirements through TBA expectations, right? And I've had that from the get-go, and one of the initiatives we sort of drove was around the fact that if a coach needs to be accredited, I'm not sure it should be up to them to spend their own money to get accredited. So we're now funding some of that as a support, but I think there's more work to be done around that. I think athletes, great athletes like yourself, putting hands in their pockets to go to events, all those sort of things just need to be reviewed at a different level than ever before, because if we're going to showcase the sport and drive it from junior level up, people need to know that there's some real credibility in what we're doing, right? And support, more importantly. So I think the whole accreditation piece, the whole volunteer piece is something we're working on, but we've started to implement a few things like that coach's accreditation and us TBA funding it.
Perfect. Cool. So Tempin City and New South Wales has sent through a question. So as parents of junior members, we would like to know where the membership registration fees are spent on.
Yeah, and look, number one, we actually this year on the back of our membership card sort of divvied up where that goes, so that each member can look on the back of that and go, okay, that's what my money goes towards. But in essence, there's an insurance component, there's a development of the sport aspect, there's our competition management or our technology piece to be able to support competitions, there's national events and event infrastructure and the portfolio of events that we accredit. That's in essence where the funds go. We also, each state and territory goes through, there's an annual grants process for the state and territory to be able to implement locally. So a lot of those grants then get cascaded to associations or local level items. And the one thing I did forget, awards and etc., which takes up quite a bit of that, because we are a sport that does provide a lot of awards. Yep. In fact, I went out to the Victorian Police and Emergency Games event recently, and there was a lot of medals handed out, and that's great because it recognises the performances and participation. And I did see a couple of the people walking out with sort of 5-6 medals around their neck, which look, it is something that's really specific around the sport, because my past experience probably hasn't had that, but we certainly invest in recognition around it as well.
Yeah.
The work we've done in relation to membership over the last 12 months, I think needs to be discussed, because I think we were really clear as a board to say that we needed to understand what membership fees were like at other sports, where that money went to. Did it go directly to the NSO? Did it go to... We needed to understand that, because that work was never done, has never been done. And to credit, to Rohan's and Damien's credit, we got some really great information around, sports, what the membership numbers are, as in dollars, where it aligns, what it doesn't align to, and then what it offers as a membership fee, a membership type experience. And I'm happy to say that we've kept membership fees to a minimum because we believe it's required, and we know that other sports have much higher memberships numbers or fees, but we believe that if we continue to keep it at these sort of levels, we can still have a thriving industry and a thriving sport with the right membership.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have cheap fees. Obviously, I know AFL, I think for a season's $350, if not upwards of that. So we're very lucky that we're quite cheap in Tempin bowling. So, and obviously the packs are out at the moment, being sent out to everyone. So keep an eye on your mailbox. My face is on it. I've had a lot of people sending me messages saying, "Oh, you just showed up on my letterbox." So that was really nice. So obviously, I'm not the only one. There's a few others like I think Fletcher from Tasmania's on there as well, and a few others. So we've got another question in regards to junior sport pathways and grassroots. How is TBA hoping to influence juniors out in the community to take up the sport? I know, like myself, I got into sport, I was Tempin bowling through a shopping centre. So AMF bowling were advertising at the time, but what is TBA going to do, I guess,
So that, and it's a really good one to sort of capture some of the other questions that have been asked around junior pathway, promotion. What are the facts? We know there's 37 sports fighting for access to these boys and girls in communities. We are really lucky because 1.1 million people walk through the doors of bowling centres every year, and birthday parties and social play and recreation. We are a major participation sport from a recreation perspective. And in linking to the Olympic discussion of earlier, that's one of our biggest benefits that we've got to drive. The skates of the world, the surfing, the rock climbing, these type of sports that are coming into the Olympics give us hope that we can do that. Converting from recreation into regular play, it's a challenge. So is it physically being at shopping centres? It's at our digital, we've really increased our digital marketing and our social media presence. Are we able to convert that? Our Facebook advertising, for example, around some of our bowl patrol centres, where that's worked really well, we've sold out programs, and that's a different way to how we would have grown up being connected to sport. One, because Facebook probably wasn't around, right? So we've got to adapt and move with it, but we've got this huge opportunity with the 1.1 million people walking through the doors, and a lot of those are children, to be able to connect them in with something, provided we're offering the right product and environment for them. And I think that's where the partnership piece with bowling centres and with businesses and other corporates to come in and showcase it is really important. And of course, that other one that we mentioned before around role models and really showcasing that the sport can be, the Jason Belmontes of the world, yourself, Beck, really highlight our best bowlers and showcase that you can be like this, and it can give you so much benefit, not only so intrinsically, but also around make a living from it and be able to support you in the future.
Yeah, I think it's really important also for TBA members, and spread the word about bowling and get your friends involved. It's not just on TBA to do all the work, it's on us as well as ambassadors of the sport, and get your best mate down to have a bowl and get them loving the sport. So
I think the other major issue, I think, is that you have a junior program, but then at the end of grade 6 that junior program stops and there's no high school program. So unless you're really loving the sport and you really want to do something next, you can't continue it at high school, right? So I think we've talked about at length around what does a high school program look like. That's the first point. The second point is that I think, and I revert it to a sales component, we've got to, as an organisation, get on the huskings and on the road and promote what we do to schools that may not have thought about bowling as a junior option, right? Schools that you would never sort of knock on the door because they've always done a specific schools program at different sports, and bowling has never been on their mind, right? But we know the benefits of a junior program through Bowl Patrol, and it's easy for us to knock on a door and say, hey, this is what we can offer. And schools will take it up. But we've never had that sort of mindset. But thanks to people like Rohan and Emily now, we do have that strong mindset to let's get on the huskings and get some more schools on board.
Fantastic. So almost at the end, we've got 5 more questions left. So these are quick ones that we've identified. So why don't bowlers get a vote when the constitution has changed and it's been asked from a member in WA?
Yeah, so the constitution of Tempin Bowling Australia was set up 1998 officially, and it was set up like most national sporting bodies, was that the 8 state territories are part of the national, what we call national voting delegates. That's pretty common in most federated systems. So for example, if you pick a netball or a cricket, for example, or a footy or a soccer, the individual participant doesn't get a say up at the national level, but all the way up there is a journey that you can do. So you can be part of your local centre or club, you can be part of your state and have a say there, and then the states have a say on behalf of the collective at a national level. So in essence, number one, the constitution was structured, and I think, pragmatically, the right thing to do definitely in terms of the way it was set up. And we work through that. So the best way that an individual member can have a say is to connect with TBA and provide feedback on what that might be, but also to connect in locally and be a part of their local state or their local region or whatever it may be, or association, and give back in that way to then be able to influence further up the tree.
Yeah, great answer. So Logan City Tempin, so a member up there, has asked a question. Obviously, we've spoken heavily today about junior bowlers and whatnot, and getting them into the sport. But what about our social senior players? So those in the over 50s leagues, with some members even up to the age of 90. So is there any plans to, I guess, give them more to the sport and what you can offer them?
I just don't think we've done enough for that bowler at that sort of older age. Okay, and I went to the most recent event in Frankston on last Sunday, and I started speaking to some people, and for them, yes, it's about the bowling piece, but it's also about the camaraderie of meeting people again and talking and spending some time. And I sort of suggested to Sandy, one of the volunteers, that maybe it's where on a Saturday night, because these bowlers get together on a Saturday night in different groups, maybe TBA puts on a dinner and gets people in a room and just gets them gets them together. And she said, what a great idea, Jerome, as an example, because their likes and dislikes are very different to a junior bowler that is going through the ranks, right? So I just don't think we understand it enough at the current moment, and we want to get to know what their likes and what they want to see, and we will then make calls on whether that could be accommodated. But I don't want anybody to think that we're not thinking of an older bowler, because I think that's the mindset. I think we've done all this work on strategy and we've got all these different types of programs and opportunities, but don't ever forget that it's that older bowler that has been driving the sport for all these years, right? So, and we don't want to forget them.
Yeah, they're our history. So
they're our history.
Very strong history.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'm going to sort of say this. My wife made a comment to me when I went home that Sunday night. A couple of the bowlers said, "Look, I've got this sort of old scorecard, and I've got an old pin, and my wife said, what we should be doing is getting these guys on a video like we are doing now, and get them to tell us the story of how they got hands of that memorabilia, because it'll then give them the opportunity to talk about their bowling career and what they've done, and we just have that on an ongoing program." And I rang Rohan that Sunday night and I said, "Hey, I've got an idea." I took the credit, but I thought, a little simple thing like that could showcase a very different mindset, if you know what I mean.
You're right, because even sitting around here, we just got a pin just behind us here that's from the 1994 Asian Tempin Championships.
Yes.
I'd love to know the history of that, who actually went and represented Australia in that. So, but yeah, all around the TBA offices, there's a lot of history and trophies, and I as a bowler, I'm only 31, but I'd love to hear the backstories, of, whether it be from Anne-Marie Putney or Carol Giannotti, whoever, or even Jeanette Baker for that example. So, yeah.
I think the other comment I might just quick, I know this was the fast five, but
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
it's
so
gone
fast.
well,
But there's actually, I think as well, a big opportunity in this older Australians area to actually provide and it may not be in the format that we currently do it, of league bowling for that group, but it might be in short, sharp, over a few weeks, introductory type thing, or reintroduction to the sport of bowling, because what's the biggest benefit of it? It's probably social connection, and as you know, the research from at a national level and a Sport Australia level is that, you know, fewer, you know, older Australians may not be as active as they were when they were younger, but this might be a good part to be able to play, to connect socially, but also physically, to be able to partake in a really good sport.
Yeah, fantastic. Cool. So from Star Bowling in Griffith in New South Wales, when we pay our TBA rego every single year, is it possible to introduce and allow registrations for multiple years so I don't have to rejoin every single year?
That's a good thought and a good question. I know there's probably a bit for us to think through around how that looks on an accounting sense around income in advance, but I think in essence I like the concept of saying we want to commit to be regular, and we could probably set up a system whereby you can actually, you know, you choose to opt out of your membership, and it saves you that time of having to go in there. So I like that sort of suggestion. We'll take it away and have a look at it.
Fantastic. So from Launceston Lanes in Tassie, this is a very basic question, this will be quick. Can you supply a new header bar with the first pin award each year? That way bowlers could compare each year.
Look, I don't know. but let's just say yes, we'll get back to you on
we'll
that.
look into it.
We'll look into it. That's a better answer.
Yeah, perfect. So Gradation Road in Victoria, do the centres get any sport funding at all from the government?
That's a really good question, and it's actually great that it's come from my favourite part of the world, the Great Ocean Road, where my family's from, and Andy and Vince down at Great Ocean Road Bowl, big hello to you both. They actually have done a really good job down there of getting support from the government in regards to providing through grants. And one of the things we did do is give access to the centres to actually apply for grants like a regular community club could. So a netball club or a soccer club or an archery club that might be run by volunteers, our Tempin bowling centres, provided they're registered with TBA, can apply for those grants. And Great Ocean Road actually have been able to benefit from that. So yes, the answer is yes. And the other part to the question, or the answer to that question, is government play a really important role in providing opportunities to build value in the sport. They're not going to just keep funding it for funding its sake. They want you to create value from it, but they also want to target communities that are maybe inactive or somewhat active, and trying to get them more active. And that's that's multicultural communities, that's the disabilities sector, that's older Australians as well, a key part, and the LGBTI community as well, from the research, are less active than the average. So government play a really key role, and we've got an opportunity to be able to provide the answers to that, and government are willing to invest, and they have with us, and Great Ocean Road's a really good example.
And the last year and a half, Beck, I must say that, you know, we are getting more and more information out to proprietors and to state associations about the grants that are available, the opportunities that are coming up. That was a key driver too. You know, we felt that if a proprietor or an association, state association, didn't know what was available, then how could you sort of ask for that money, in simple terms, right? So we're now getting emails out. I see them because I'm CC'd on some of this stuff, and it's clear that we can support proprietors and associations at a much greater level.
Yeah. And just to add, you've just reminded me as well that we're in the process of providing from the New South Wales government to any registered TBA centre in New South Wales can receive a grant. And that's ready and raring to go now, and New South Wales centres are actually, you know, tapping into that to get that money. So that's one of the benefits of being part of the TBA family, is that link in, which you wouldn't necessarily get if you're on your own as part of a business running a centre, but as part of a bigger fraternity, if you want to use that word, it's a really good benefit.
Yep, that's fantastic. Well, that wraps up our first ever G'day TBA forum. So I just want to thank you guys for your time today and answering all the questions, or most of the questions that the members have sent through. For the members, I hope you got all the answers that you wanted. I think this is a great thing going forward, and it opens up the communication channel for members, because that's obviously something that they felt they haven't had in the past. So yeah, TBA will be, I guess, communicating when the next one will be, and you can all send in your questions again. But yes, thank you to you two for today.
Thanks, Beck, and to you as well. Thank you very much for coming in to do it. It adds so much having a bowler of your standing ask the questions, and hopefully to everyone out there, as I said, we had well over 100 questions. We haven't been able to cover them all in the time we've got. However, we'll be having quarterly forums and opportunities. We can convert them across into that next one. Or, as I mentioned at the start, we'll have our team connect in with as many of the questions as possible. We've done that and maintain anonymity around this as well, so that people can be prepared to ask any questions. You know, we haven't prepared answers. We're basically just really trying to make it as natural as possible to answer it as best we can, because we're all systems go and moving forward as a sport on the move. So thanks very much.
Yeah, TBA's obviously the door's always open, so if you do have any questions in the meantime, I'm sure they'll welcome your question into their inbox. So yeah, definitely reach out.
The engagement piece for us was the key driver, you know, and I think any engagement needs to be authentic and it needs to be transparent, and that is what we are as an organisation, and we've got great leaders and we've got great people around the organisation, such as yourself and others, that we just need to showcase that we're doing the right thing by the members.
Yep.